everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Cliff and I'm an Australian gem cutter, and in today's video we'll be looking at another faceting machine. As you can see on the desk, the current machine that I've been using for many years is called a Facet Star, and it was made in Melbourne, Australia. But let's have a look at another faceting machine that I recently purchased. It's also made in Australia and it's called a Gem Master GF2. And here we have it, folks, the Gem Master GF2. Let's have a closer look at it. So there we had in the previous scene the machine running and going through the selection of the different knobs from medium to polish and then fast speed, and it was in that order. So let's have a look at what else this Gem Master GF2 has to offer. Now, one of the reasons I bought this machine because I've always used a machine that has a mast. In many ways the Gem Master GF2 is a lot like my Facet Star, so it shouldn't take me very long to learn this machine. In terms of build quality compared to my Facet Star, the Gem Master GF2 is by far well engineered and probably over engineered. There's a little bit of overkill going on with the size of the motor, but I really did want to buy another machine, and this is a second-hand machine and it's over 30 years old, but I did want to buy a machine that would become a backup machine. At the moment we're looking at the quill assembly, which is made out of solid brass, and it is quite a long quill, easy to hold on to. It's a little bit different than the Facet Star quill in terms that it has a clip that needs to be released when you're free spinning it, and just like the Facet Star, it has the cheater on the side, so that won't be too hard for me to learn how to use, as the cheater goes in the same direction. The protractor assembly is a lot more complicated than on my previous machine, yet it's easy to set. It has a knob on the back of the protractor and you can just adjust up and down according to how high or low you want to be faceting. So what this machine has, what my other machine never had, is a vernier where I can adjust the degrees by increments of 1/10 of a degree. What I find appealing about this machine is that the height adjuster, when I'm turning clockwise, is lowering the faceting head assembly, and turning anti-clockwise raises it. And it's just common sense that from an engineering point of view, that when you're turning something in a clockwise direction, usually we assume that it will lower, like when you're tightening up a screw, you're turning it into a nut and it's going into the nut. However, some fastening machines, when you're turning the height adjuster clockwise, it's raising the assembly. So with the mast assembly, it's very simple. Like my Facet Star, the knob on the back, it just lowers the entire assembly. So what makes this machine unique is that the faceting head assembly pivots on a separate assembly connected to the mast. Now, often with faceting head assemblies, they are one piece. My other machine was just a one piece assembly which just would slide down on the mast, but this is different, this machine, so it's going to take a little bit getting used to that separate pivoting action that this machine has. So this machine, unlike my other machine, has a depth gauge light. And I've mentioned this before in quite a few of my videos with depth gauges, whether they're lights or whether they're a gauge. I reckon they're a bit of a gimmick, but I'll show you how this works. So we plug this wire into the base of the faceting head, and then we connect into the base of the machine. So depending on the fastening angles you're cutting at and where it's set on the protractor, at some point when you're cutting a facet, you will cut to depth and the protractor will hit a hard stop, where technically you can't facet any deeper on that facet. But like most people, we always like to add a lot more pressure, and you do not need to add more pressure to cut by half a degree over. I like to listen by ear as I'm grinding, and that tells me a lot when I've cut to depth. Now, one good thing about this depth gauge with this light is that it's in your line of sight, and I always say that people who have gauges, don't go looking at the gauge, look at the gem as you're cutting it. This particular depth gauge light is simply just powered by some batteries, as you can see here in this assembly. Actually, GemMaster have thought this really well out to build this depth gauge light into their machine, and if you were a commercial faceter, this would be a really handy feature where you wouldn't be too pedantic about meet points or overcutting, whereas I would be as a recreational faceter, or particularly if you're competition faceting. So this would be good for those people who like to cut really quick, if you want to cut 2 or 3 gems a day. I'm way too slow. I'm lucky to cut 1 gem a week. So the GemMaster quill assembly has like a chuck on the end of the quill, and this will lock in the dop stick. Now the dop stick has a slot into it, and that will align with a pin. Now that pin can be adjusted higher or lower, but as you turn the chuck, it will tighten onto the dop, and you just need to tighten up a little bit with the spanner and then loosen with the spanner. I reckon this is a great idea because when you're locking in dops with grub screws, the grub screw tends to push down on the dop, which means you get a little bit of misalignment, but this has been well thought out also, in my opinion. Like all the components on this machine, even the gate assembly is really well manufactured. It's solid cast aluminium, very easy to get on and off, and it has 2 brass screws that locks it in place. I should mention also that the entire pan and the base of this machine is made out of solid cast aluminium. So the machine also comes with a little attachment that clips onto the side of the tray, so when you're cutting at 90 degrees this will stop a lot of the splashing. It's really well thought out. Well done, GemMaster. So let's have a quick look at the undercarriage of this machine, and you can see where the machine was actually manufactured. 205 West Beach Road, Richmond, South Australia, and that was quite a long time ago. So it has quite a few pulleys. I'm going to leave it on this particular speed. I really don't need to go any faster. I'm happy exactly where it is. So the drop pulley system on this machine is quite easy to regulate the different speeds. I'm quite happy with the current speed that I've got at. I don't need to be faceting any faster, but if I wanted to change up the speed, I certainly can just drop the belt on the different pulleys. In a moment we'll be looking at the motor of this machine, and in comparison to my other machine, this motor absolutely dwarfs the Facet Star motor. I thought the Facet Star had a huge motor, and it does compared to most machines around, but this particular motor makes my other machine look like a Hobbit, where this is just Gandalf the Great. And I wonder why GemMaster did this. It's really just a lot of overkill and a lot of over engineering, but you have to remember that it was made probably over 30 years ago, in a time where everything in Australia was over engineered, where things were meant to last virtually forever. And unlike some of the fastening machines that are manufactured now, they're just using cheap 12 volt Chinese motors, and I think we're better than that in Australia. Anyway, moving right along, some of the other accessories that came with the machine are all the dop sticks and of course the transfer jig. This machine also came with several index wheels, a 96, an 80 and a 64 index wheel. So we're coming to the end of another video. I would like to thank all my subscribers and viewers for taking the time to watch my videos. Hopefully some of you find that this video is fascinating. So until next time everybody, take care. I'll see you around. Bye.